My sister didn't just pour a glass of vintage red wine down my white silk dress. She looked me dead in the eyes and told the security guard that the help wasn't allowed to cry in front of the guests. The wine spread across my chest like a wound opening. I felt the cold seep through to my skin. But what paralyzed me wasn't the temperature. It was my mother's face in the glass door behind Chloe. She saw everything. She watched her youngest daughter get humiliated at her eldest daughter's wedding. And then she turned around and walked back to the champagne. My hands started shaking, not from embarrassment, from rage. Because as the Cabernet soaked into my dress, I looked past Chloe's smirking face and saw my husband's black SUV pulling into the valet circle. And I knew that in exactly 60 seconds, my family's entire world was going to burn to the ground. Not because of him, because of me. My name is Nora Whitfield. I'm 34, and I'm a soil scientist. This is the story of how I stopped being invisible. For most of my life, I've been the shadow daughter, the one who stayed in the background while my older sister Chloe absorbed every drop of my parents' attention, like she was entitled to it. I spend my days in labs and greenhouses, figuring out how to feed a planet that's running out of resources. It's quiet work, humble work. And to my parents, Frank and Diane, it was a source of deep, burning embarrassment. Chloe married a man named Marcus Kellner, a senior VP at Agro Global, one of the largest food conglomerates in the world. Marcus drove a car that cost more than my entire graduate education and wore watches that could fund a clinic. My parents treated him like visiting royalty. Then there was my husband, Ethan. I met Ethan at a seed convention in a dusty exhibition hall in Iowa. He was wearing flannel and work boots, talking about regenerative farming with the kind of passion that made me forget anyone else was in the room. To my family, Ethan was the farmhand. When I first brought him home 3 years ago, my mother didn't even offer him a seat. She asked if he'd remembered to scrape the manure off his boots before stepping on a rug. What my family didn't know, what I deliberately never told them, was that Ethan didn't just work on a farm. He owned Ridgerest Industries. The land, the patents, the supply chains that Marcus's company relied on to stay profitable. Ethan's net worth had 9 figures, but he'd rather fix a tractor himself than sit in a boardroom. And me? I wasn't just some lab technician. I was the chief science officer of our firm. Together, we were the silent giants of the industry. We kept it quiet because Ethan always said the same thing. Nora, if they don't love you when they think you're poor, they don't deserve you when they find out you're powerful. I agreed with him, but God, it was getting harder to stay silent. The invitation to Chloe's wedding arrived 6 months ago. A $200,000 black tie event at a cliffside estate overlooking the Pacific. My invitation came with a handwritten note from my mother. Please make sure Ethan wears a suit that doesn't smell like the outdoors. We have important people attending. A month before the wedding, the cracks started showing. My father called, his voice tight with panic. No hello, no asking how I was, just straight to the ask. Nora, the venue is threatening to cancel. Marcus's investments are tied up, and we're $25,000 short for the final deposit. You wouldn't happen to have anything in savings, would you? We'll pay you back once Marcus's bonus comes through. I knew Marcus's bonus wasn't coming. Through the industry grapevine, I'd heard Agro Global was doing a massive internal audit. Someone had been skimming expense accounts for months. One of our senior accountants had a contact on Agro Global's compliance team, and the rumors about a VP in Marcus's division were specific enough to make me uneasy. But I listened to my father's desperate voice, and despite everything, I thought of Chloe. She was still my sister. I sent the money anonymously through a shell corporation we used for philanthropy. I told the venue to call it a special vendor credit. Chloe posted about it on Facebook the next day. The universe just knows I deserve the best. A $25,000 credit because the venue loves my aesthetic. Ethan saw the post and shook his head. Nora, you're too good for them. I just want one day where we're all happy, I whispered. One day where they see me. How naive I was. The day of the wedding arrived, and with it, a storm. Not just the one gathering over the ocean, the one that had been building inside me for 34 years. We arrived at the estate. Ethan had to stay in the car for 20 minutes to handle an emergency call from our compliance director, who had just received a confidential tip from our contact at Agro Global confirming the audit results and naming Marcus directly. So, I walked in alone. I was wearing a simple, elegant cream silk gown, not bridal white, just soft, understated elegance. My mother met me at the door. Her face fell the moment she saw me. "Nora, you look fine, but there's a problem. Marcus's CEO decided to attend last minute. We're over capacity in the ballroom." She paused, looking past me like I was already disappearing. "You'll need to sit on the terrace." The terrace? Outside, where it was starting to rain? I followed her gesture and saw a few folding chairs set up under a leaking canvas canopy near the kitchen service entrance. "You're joking, honey. Be reasonable." My father appeared behind her. "Marcus's career depends on impressing these people, your family. You'll understand. Just stay out here until the toasts are over. We'll bring you a plate." I stood under that leaking tent for an hour. Servers bumped past me carrying trays. Rain splashed the hem of my dress. I watched through the windows as my family laughed and clinked glasses inside. Then Chloe walked out. She looked stunning, but her eyes were ice. "Nora, what are you doing? You're blocking the service path." "I'm sitting where Mom told me to sit, Chloe, in the mud." "Don't be dramatic. You're lucky you're even here." Honestly, Marcus was worried Ethan would start rambling about fertilizer to the CEO and embarrass everyone. She looked at my dress, her lip curling. "Is that silk? Bit much for a farm girl, don't you think?" Before I could respond, she stumbled forward. It was the most calculated movement I'd ever seen. The full glass of Cabernet in her hand didn't just tip. She threw it. The wine coated my chest, my stomach, my dignity in deep, spreading red. "Oh no," she said, not a hint of remorse in her voice. "Well, I guess you really can't come inside now. You look like a mess." She turned to a nearby guard. "Security, can you escort this woman to the parking lot? She's causing a disturbance." I looked toward the glass doors. My parents were watching. Neither of them moved. Neither of them said a single word. They just turned their backs and walked away. I was halfway to the gravel lot, tears blurring my vision, when Ethan's SUV pulled up to the valet circle ahead of me. He stepped out, looking sharp in a tailored charcoal suit. He saw me, the wet hair, the wine-soaked dress, and his expression shifted from calm to something dangerous. "Nora, what happened?" I couldn't speak. I just pointed toward the ballroom. Ethan started walking, but this time I grabbed his arm. "No," I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "This one's mine." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. We walked toward the main entrance together. The security guard stepped forward. "Ma'am, the terrace guests..." "Move." It came out of my mouth like it belonged to someone else, someone who was done being invisible. He moved. We pushed through the ballroom doors just as Marcus was mid-toast. Champagne glass raised, talking about success and the importance of high society connections. The room went silent. 200 people turned to stare at the woman in the wine-stained dress. Chloe's face went white. "Nora, I told you to leave." My mother rushed over. "Please, you're making a scene. You're going to ruin Marcus's night." But someone else was already walking toward us. An older man in a navy suit. I recognized him from industry magazines. Richard Calloway, CEO of Agro Global. His eyes locked on Ethan first. "Ethan Whitfield, I've been trying to reach your office for a week. I had no idea you'd be here tonight." I watched the color drain from Marcus's face, but I didn't wait for Ethan to respond. "He's not here for business, Mr. Calloway." My voice carried across the silent room. "He's here because I'm his wife, and my family thought it would be appropriate to seat me outside in the rain so I wouldn't embarrass them in front of people like you." Calloway's eyebrows rose. Marcus stepped forward, sweating through his expensive shirt. "Nora, honey, there's been a misunderstanding." "Has there?" I took a step toward him. The red wine was still dripping from my hem onto the marble floor. "Is it a misunderstanding that the $25,000 that saved this wedding came from my pocket? The anonymous vendor credit my sister bragged about online?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Or how about the research papers you cited in your promotion bid last quarter? Marcus, the ones about soil regeneration and sustainable yield optimization?" I smiled. "I wrote those. Every word. You stole my work and put your name on it." Calloway turned slowly toward Marcus. "You told the board that research was yours." "It was a collaboration," Marcus stammered. "She's exaggerating. I have the original files," I said, time-stamped, backed up on 3 servers. "I also have something else." I turned to Ethan. He handed me the folder he'd received documentation of during the car ride over. "This is an internal audit report," I said, holding it up. "It documents $40,000 in fraudulent expense claims over the past 18 months, all traced to accounts controlled by your senior VP. I looked at Chloe. "It's how he paid for this aesthetic wedding." Chloe screamed. "That's a lie. My husband is successful." "Your husband is a thief," I said. "And you're a bully. And our parents—" I turned to look at my mother, who had gone pale as bone. Our parents chose their favorite daughter a long time ago. Tonight, that choice cost them everything. Calloway took the folder from my hands. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The look he gave Marcus said it all. Then he pulled out his phone and stepped away, already instructing his assistant to contact legal and HR before the night was over. Ethan finally spoke. "I was going to finalize a merger between Ridgerest and Agro Global on Monday, but seeing how your executives treat my wife, I think I'll be exploring other options." He looked at Marcus. "Don't bother coming in Monday. Security will have your things in a box." My father tried to grab Ethan's arm. "Son, let's talk about this. We're family." Ethan looked at my father's hand like it was something he'd scraped off his boot. "Family sits together at the table, Frank. They don't put their daughter in the mud." I took Ethan's hand. "Let's go." As we walked out, I heard the music stop. I heard the catering manager announcing that the final payment had been voided by the original donor. Without my $25,000, the contract was void. The lights went out on Chloe's wedding, but here's the part I didn't see coming. 2 days later, my mother showed up at our home. Our real home. The estate with the glass walls and the private lake. She'd found our address through Marcus's work contacts, before he was terminated, back when he still had access to Agro Global's vendor database listing Ridgerest's corporate headquarters. She didn't come to apologize. She came with a bill. "Since you ruined Chloe's life," she said, her eyes scanning our property with naked greed, "the least you can do is pay off the debt Marcus left us with. If you refuse, I'll go to the press. I'll tell them Ethan Whitfield is a cold-hearted mogul who destroys his own family for sport." I looked at her. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel anything at all. "Go ahead, Mom. Call them." She blinked. "But before you do, you should know that I pulled the security footage from the terrace. The cameras at that venue, they're part of a system Ethan's company installed. I have everything on video. The wine, the humiliation, you watching through the glass and walking away." I stepped closer. "If you go to the press, the world won't see a cold mogul. They'll see a mother who watched her daughter get publicly humiliated at a wedding and then showed up 2 days later to demand a check." She turned pale. She left without another word. I haven't heard from any of them since. Last I heard, Chloe and Marcus are living in my parents' basement. Marcus is facing a civil lawsuit for the embezzlement. and Chloe has been selling her designer wedding gifts online to help pay for his attorney. Ethan and I are back in the lab, back in the soil, because at the end of the day, you can't grow anything real in a place built on lies. If you stayed until the end of this story, thank you. It means more than you know. And if you've ever been the one they tried to hide in the back of the room, the one they made feel small, this space is for you. Your worth isn't defined by the chair they give you. It's defined by the person you become when no one's watching. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one. And I'll see you in the next story. Stay strong. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.